Hey guys, what's up? It's Ninja. I've been playing the new patch for a few days and I wanted to give my thoughts on it. So in this video, we're going to talk about what changed with the new patch, and then we're going to talk obviously about the Oaken Soul Ring and my thoughts on it. In short, if you want to know my thoughts on the Oaken Soul Ring, it is basically werewolf for any class. You guys know how if you put on werewolf, you basically are in a bot costume with 5 abilities, but you can sustain, you can survive, you can even hang around with the big boys that have been playing for a while with half of the skills because the actual class just has that much power. Oaken Soul is very similar. It's very similar to werewolf, but the problem is that you can put Oaken Soul on a werewolf, so you basically have 2 werewolf classes on a werewolf. Now, if you can't really wolf yourself through that one, I don't know how to help you. Alright, without getting ahead of ourselves, let's talk about the new damage meta. I don't want to get too crazy into Oaken Soul just yet. We need to talk about what happened with the game first before we delve into it. So, everybody got a shit ton of damage this patch. That's what's going on. Borden, Magden, their beetles got minor breach on it, so that's 3k pen. Stamblades got power extraction, which gives you minor courage, which is 250 weapon spell damage, so that's really good as well. A lot of classes got some damage buffs. DK and Templar got toned down a little bit, and everybody basically has to run either Sea Serpent or Oaken Soul to be viable. If you're looking at the best in slot mythics for this patch, if you didn't buy High Isle, straight up you're just gonna get shit on. That's what this patch is. Sea Serpent, I don't see it not going on every single build, because it gives you 2 5 pieces for a single 1 piece. Zos is just increasing the overall power of every build just by adding Sea Serpent to it. Even though the slow is kind of bad, you can put on some Swift. You don't even feel the slow when you're at full health, which is really nice as well. It's basically an only in combat kind of mythic if you want to think of it like that. I think that's pretty unique about it. And it's the only way that you're going to be able to keep up with an Oaken Soul build. Now, on top of a few classes getting skill buffs and damage increases, there was also a huge champion point change. So, you know, all those X clips where people were complaining, oh my god, look at this Mad DK, he has Plague Break and Corrosive. Like, it takes no skill with Plague Break. Well, now every class has Plague Break because of a Cull Overload. So that's something also to keep in mind this patch. And also damage is just higher now because of CP. So they buffed some classes with like damage increases on their abilities. They made CP hit harder and made everybody squishier. And then they gave everybody just major courage and major berserk at all times just because. The new champion points, what they did was they took all CP stars that were like 10%, i.e. like let's use Ironclad and Duelist Rebuff for example. They gave you 10% damage reduction to direct damage attacks and single target attacks. That is now 6%. So going along with the increased damage buffs and the fact that everybody has Sea Serpent or Oaken on, and then you also put on the fact that everybody has Exploiter passive in the CP tree now, if they can, which is a unique 10% damage increase compared to all the defense stuff giving you 6% defense. So there's also more damage coming in from Exploiter now. It's really, it's a high damage meta. It's high damage meta, this patch. You would be pretty dumb to not try and fit off balance onto your build if you can, just because of Exploiter passive this patch. It's the strongest CP star that you can use right now for damage, and off balance as well is just so much heavy attack sustain, like you'd be really dumb to not fit off balance on your builds. So just as a quick note as well, when you're seeing these screenshots online of people saying, oh, I hit like 15k crits with Blast Bones on an Oaken Soul build, yeah, that's a lot of damage, and that, you know, probably you really just pressed one button and got 18k damage. And Oaken Soul really does fill up that gap where you can't like line up other stuff and it just carries that damage for you. You also should remember that this patch, we are going to be having like roughly 20 or 30% more overall damage. Just because every effective build is going to be running Sea Serpent, or they're going to be running Oaken Soul, so everybody has major courage, major berserk right now, and then with the CP changes on top of that being more offensive than before and everybody's defense going down, you're going to see a lot of high damage this patch. So that's just something to keep in mind. So what is Oaken Soul? Oaken Soul is an item that you put on your character. It gives you basically every major buff in the game, and you can only use 5 skills. Now there's a lot of good and there's some bad with the Oaken Soul, but it's mostly good. It's a werewolfizer. It turns your class into basically what would be a werewolf. If you want to play the class easy mode, there's Oaken Soul. Oaken Soul you can throw on 1 heal over time, a burst heal, a mobility skill, a spammable, a stun, and whatever ult you want, and you're set. You can make a lot of things work. And they don't really have to be that well thought out because you have Oaken Soul that basically carries all your recovery and your damage and your defense. The one big complaint I got while playing my Stamblade today, that is a 1-bar Stamblade, was that it was extremely tanky, and the only tankiness I actually had was like 17k armor and the major protection from Oaken Soul. Like, it's a werewolfizer, you're just dumb tanky and you can do whatever you want. So, Oaken Soul on its own, is it a broken mythic? It is no doubt the most powerful mythic that has ever come out, but it has to be powerful because you are on 1 bar. So saying like it's the most broken mythic ever to come out is also don't buy this pay to win piece of shit. I mean, it is pay to win if you don't have Sea Serpent. If you didn't buy High Isle, this game is pay to win. Yeah. Oaken Soul gives you a lot of buffs, but it's really not that much better for a 2-bar build for overall potential. So let's break it down a little bit. So I have made a little chart here, little diagram, so you guys can visualize the difference between 2-bar builds and 1-bar builds now that Oaken Soul and Sea Serpent are a thing. So comparing these 2-bar builds, we're just going to assume you have Sea Serpent Coil, because if you're not running Sea Serpent, you're not running the most stat-dense mythic, so you suck. Looking at 2-bar builds, both 2-bar and 1-bar builds share the fact that they can run 2 5P sets. This is really nice. 2-bar builds can run a whole monster set, whereas 1-bar builds can only run a 1-line monster, which is fine. They basically are losing out on a monster set on 1-bar builds. So that's the first disadvantage that 1-bar builds have. And then we're looking at 2-bar builds. They are running Sea Serpent's Coil, which is a snare, and it is 2 of the biggest buffs on Oaken Soul. We can see that Sea Serpent is the same as 2 buffs on Oaken Soul, Major Courage and Major Berserk. And on a 2-bar build, you effectively have 8 skills. Something to note is that 2 skills are used for Major Resolve and Major Brutality that the ring gives you. So you are left with 5 skills on the actual Oaken Soul ring. So in summary, what are we looking at? A 2-bar build has a minus 40% speed snare, but the good thing about this snare is that it is a self-imposed 40% snare. And the way that snares stack in this game is that if you are hit with like a 30% snare and you have a 40% snare already on you, you are just snared 40%. They do not add, it just takes the highest value. So the fact that you're snared all the time by Oaken Soul means that you're immune to these lesser snares, kind of like a really bootleg version of Snow Treaders. That is something to consider. And 2-bar builds have 3 more effective skills than a 1-bar build. They have access to a whole monster set or an arena weapon if you want, and you have 2 methods of heavy attacking, which is one of the big downsides actually for 1-bar builds, is that they can only heavy attack with whatever weapon they have on the front. So if you are using any hybrid type of skills, let's say that you have 3 stam skills, 2 mag skills, or 3 mag skills, 2 stam skills, and you have dual wield on the front, every time you heavy attack, you're only going to get back stamina. You're not going to get back magicka, but where a 2-bar build can really accentuate that sustain is that they have a resto on the back bar. And so you can heavy attack with a restoration staff, get like 6-7k mag back, and then go to the front, heavy attack with your dual wield, and then you get like 3-4k stand back from that as well. And something else to consider is that 2-bar builds have back bar passives. So if you do major mending, for example on a resto staff, that is a big boost to your healing. And those come off of heavy attacks. You can also look at like bow back bar for speed, You're looking at sword and board back bar for extra blocking and block mitigation. And then you have 1-bar builds. So 1-bar builds, their trade-off is that they don't get any of that shit, but they get permanent major heroism, major force, major protection, major savagery, major prophecy, and they have a cleaner rotation. So they have more overall power, less skills, and a cleaner, more aggressive rotation. The really good part about Oaken Soul is that you don't need to apply like 4 buffs or 4 or 5 debuffs before you smack somebody. Oaken Soul has so much power that it makes the few skills that you have feel like they hit as much as 5 skills. Which, I mean, against a good player that can block those 2 skills, you're probably not going to beat them. Like, if you just have surprise attack and bow proc, you are literally a 2-button god. Compared to a 2-bar build where you can shake things up and you can kind of juke people out and add on more stuff to, like, maybe you want some damage over time pressure, so you can like slot stuff on the back. You know, there's a lot of different ways you can build your offense with 2-bar builds that you just can't do with a 1-bar build. So the big takeaway, what you have to consider for your builds when you're looking between 2-bar builds and a 1-bar build, answer yourself this. Is 3 skills, a monster set, an extra ult, and back bar passives equal to major heroism, major force, major protection, major savagery, and a cleaner rotation? For some builds it is. Like if you're looking at a corrosive spamming Dragon Knight, that major heroism is going to be best in slot for their build because they're just going to pop off with corrosives. Is that a problem with Oaken Soul or is that a problem with Dragon Knight? More of a problem with Dragon Knight, honestly. You get major force, but a lot of builds don't really have that much crit. And even if you run Oaken Soul and you get your major savagery, you're still only looking at 25% crit. Whereas if you wanted that major force on like a 2-bar build with like 40% crit, it's going to hit a lot harder. If you manage to get it on somehow. Major protection, honestly, I don't feel this bonus is really that important because you can get major protection through your CP. So I feel like that's also covered on a 2-bar build for the most part. And major savagery, a lot of builds run Camo Hunter, right? So you are looking at 1 skill less on a 2-bar build. Maybe you want 7 skills instead of 8 skills. And then you're only looking at a difference of major heroism and major force. And a cleaner rotation between a 2-bar build. So that's a fair comparison. Is Oaken Soul more broken than 2-bar builds? Yes and no. If you guys enjoyed this video, let me know by dropping a like and consider subscribing if you want to see more ESO related content. If you guys have any questions about my analysis or you just want to talk about what we talked about today, drop a comment. I'll get back to you pronto. I'm always down to talk about this. I think this is really good discussion, and it's probably something that we need to talk about if we're going to play the game. And I've heard Oaken Soul is kind of a problem on PC. It's only been a few days on console, so it hasn't plagued us just yet. Like you remember FOA when Dark Convergence came out. First few days it was, you know, like, oh, look at this set. Oh, that kind of pulls us in. That's weird. And then a week later it was just pain. So, yeah. We can use this video as a window into the past before Oaken Soul was literally everywhere. Then yeah, that's all from me, guys. See you later. Chowder.